All right, diving into Lesson 64 of A Course in Miracles. Let me not forget my function.
Hmm. Heavy stuff. We've got a lot to work with: audio, summaries, even some exercises. This should be interesting. The title, it seems, well, simple at first glance.
Deceptively simple, I'd say. Yeah. It's intentional. The Course often uses this kind of technique, a simple statement, but pointing to something much deeper, a much deeper truth.
Okay, I like a hidden depth. So what's this deeper truth then? What function should we be remembering?
Well, remember the last lesson about choosing, the Holy Spirit's voice instead of the ego's.
Yeah.
Lesson 64 goes a step further. It's saying, all right, you're choosing that voice, good, but what are you doing? Like, with it, I mean,
Hmm.
what happens? What's the outcome when you align with the Holy Spirit?
So not just hearing the right voice, but putting that guidance into action.
Exactly. And that action, according to the lesson, it's about, well, being a source of love and forgiveness. That's our true function. You could say our purpose. Okay, that makes sense in the context of A Course in Miracles. But I gotta be honest, sometimes these big ideas, they feel, I don't know, a bit intangible.
Hmm.
How do I actually be a source of love every day? It sounds a little like, a Hallmark card sentiment, not a real action plan.
I get it. It's easy to get lost in the abstract language, but the audio discussion had a good point, I think. They were saying the ego, that voice we're trying to quiet, it's obsessed with getting love, like we're always in need, lacking something. But this lesson says, no, you are love. You're a source of it already. So it's not about getting more, but expressing what you already are.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So instead of what I need from others, I should focus on how I can express love to them.
You got it. And here's what's interesting. When you shift your focus that way, you actually start experiencing more love. It's like, tuning into a different frequency, a different way of being.
Okay, I can see that. But there are times when I feel tested, like when someone's pushing my buttons. How do I respond with, love and forgiveness when I just want to, I don't know, scream into a pillow?
That's a great question, and it's something the lesson talks about directly. It's not saying you have to be passive or pretend things are okay when they're not. It's more about, well, choosing your response from a place of love instead of reacting with, fear or anger.
So take a pause before reacting. Ask myself, what would love do here?
Precisely. And that pause, that moment of conscious choice, that's where the power is.
It's starting to click. But it sounds like, well, it takes practice, like building a muscle. Speaking of practice, I see there are exercises. What are some ways the lesson suggests we, put this into action?
Well, they recommend setting reminders, throughout the day. A sticky note, an alarm, just something to bring you back to this idea of being a source of love.
Simple, but probably effective.
Yeah.
What else?
The power of affirmations, visualizations. Affirmations, they're positive statements you repeat. Visualizations, picturing yourself embodying that love and forgiveness.
I've used those before, but not really thinking about A Course in Miracles. I'm definitely going to revisit that. Anything else?
Meditation. It's a powerful way to cultivate inner peace. And then love and forgiveness can flow more naturally. Oh, and they also mention acts of kindness.
Oh, I love that. Acts of kindness. They're so powerful. And they don't have to be, anything huge. Just a small gesture can change someone's day.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, those acts of kindness affect you too. They reinforce that commitment to, being a source of love. It's a ripple effect,
Yeah.
Spreading way beyond that interaction.
This is coming together, building a toolkit for living this lesson, not just thinking about it. But I'm also wondering about those times when forgiveness is really hard, like when someone's really hurt us or there's, injustice. Can we really respond with love in those moments?
That's a big one. And it goes to the core of what forgiveness actually means.
And what does it mean? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Well, it's not about condoning bad behavior or pretending everything's fine. It's more about releasing yourself from that grip of anger and resentment.
So it's not about the other person, but our own inner state.
Exactly. And it's not easy, for sure. But holding on to anger and resentment, the lesson says it only hurts us, keeps us trapped in pain.
I see that. But it's still hard when there's real trauma, injustice. How do we even approach forgiveness then?
Well, the audio discussion talked about how, forgiveness, it's a process, not a destination. It's something you practice, not achieve overnight.
That takes the pressure off, having to get it right all at once.
And they also said we don't have to do it alone.
Right.
There's this idea in the Course, the Holy Spirit's always there to guide us, to help us find that love and forgiveness inside us.
It's less a burden, more a partnership.
Exactly. And one exercise, it's asking for help, asking the Holy Spirit to guide you through forgiveness.
So powerful. Reminds me of that line from the Course, I can do nothing by myself. We're not supposed to go through this alone.
Right, and they suggest using visualizations, to help you see those challenging situations differently. Like picturing yourself sending love to the person who hurt you, or imagining things resolving peacefully, lovingly.
I've heard of that, and it helps.
Yeah.
It's like you're training your mind to see things respond differently.
Exactly. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Like creating a new path in your brain, a path of love and forgiveness.
Okay, to sum up, Lesson 64 builds on the last one. It encourages us to put that understanding of the Holy Spirit's voice into action. We talked about being a source of love and forgiveness. That's our function and the tools the lesson gives us to embody it. We also talked about, the hard parts of forgiveness, dealing with those tough situations, painful memories. But it sounds like the key is forgiveness is a process, a journey, and we're not alone. We have that support from the Holy Spirit and from these techniques.
Perfectly put. And remember, even small steps towards love and forgiveness, they can have a big impact. It's not about being perfect, but making conscious choices moment to moment.
That reminds me, the audio discussion mentioned how even a small act of forgiveness, choosing not to judge harshly, it can create a ripple effect,
Yeah.
planting a seed of love that grows and spreads in amazing ways.
Beautiful image. We have more power than we realize.
I love that. So what are some other ways we can cultivate this ability to be a source of love and forgiveness?
Well, they mention being kind to ourselves.
Oh, that's a good one. We're so hard on ourselves, especially when we make mistakes.
Right. And self-forgiveness, the lesson says, it's just as important as forgiving others. It's realizing we're all human, we all mess up, and we deserve love, compassion, even then.
That's crucial because how can we extend love and forgiveness to others if we can't do it for ourselves?
Exactly. It starts with self-love. And from there, from that self-acceptance, it's easier to extend that same love and compassion outward.
This is inspiring. But maybe we should pause here, let this all sink in for a bit.
Agreed. It's a lot to digest.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into Lesson 64 of A Course in Miracles. Don't go anywhere.
It's amazing how much depth there is to this idea of being a source of love and forgiveness. We've been talking a while, and I feel like we're just, scratching the surface.
I know, right? We haven't even touched on the exercises. I'm curious about the one where you write down 3 ways to express love and forgiveness every day. It makes it, I think, more tangible.
Definitely. That's what's so cool about A Course in Miracles. It gives you these big spiritual ideas, but then it also gives you, actual tools to use them.
Exactly. So besides that writing exercise, what are some other ways the lesson suggests, for integrating this stuff?
Well, one thing that jumped out was the emphasis on meditation. They say even a few minutes focusing on love and forgiveness, it can create a ripple effect. It goes way beyond just those few minutes.
I've heard that about meditation changing your brain waves, making you more compassionate. Is that what they're getting at?
I think so. The Course talks a lot about how our thoughts, they create our reality, right? So if we're stuck on fear and negativity, that's what we'll, attract. But if we can shift, focus on love and forgiveness, even for a little bit, it changes the energy around us.
Okay, so it's like we're retraining our minds to default to love, not fear.
Yeah, exactly. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. Think of it like a muscle. You're building it up. At first, it might feel weird, forced, but eventually it becomes second nature.
So we've got reminders, affirmations, visualizations, meditation, acts of kindness, and that writing exercise. That's a lot. But how do we know if we're doing it? I don't know, right? Can we measure our progress with this whole love and forgiveness thing?
That's a great question. And a lot of people who study the Course, they wrestle with that. The Course itself, it doesn't really give a straight answer, but it suggests, the proof is in the pudding. If we're really living as a source of love, we'll see it in our lives.
What kind of proof? What would that look like?
Well, it could be in our relationships. We might notice we're more patient, understanding, or we might find ourselves surrounded by more loving, supportive people.
So it's not just how we feel, but how our actions, our energy, affects everyone around us.
Yeah. It's about becoming a beacon of love and forgiveness, a force for good, for positive change.
That's beautiful, but also a little daunting. What if I mess up, have a bad day, and I'm not so loving? Does that mean I'm failing?
One of the biggest lessons in A Course in Miracles is self-forgiveness. Realizing that we're human, we make mistakes, and that's all right.
So it's not about perfection, but about trying.
Exactly. The Course says every moment it's a new chance to choose love over fear, forgiveness over judgment. So even if we, slip up, react with ego, not spirit, we can always choose again.
That's good to hear. Takes pressure off.
And that's the point, really. The Course isn't about some perfect spiritual state. It's about living with more love, peace, joy.
Sounds like Lesson 64 is giving us the map to do just that.
I think so. And we can follow it at our own pace, one step at a time.
You talking about this, it reminds me, in the summaries, they mention how the ego, it tries to make us think we're separate, like competing for, limited things.
Oh, yeah. Classic ego move. Creates this, illusion of scarcity, separation.
The lesson says that's not true. We're all
Mhm.
connected, all part of the same source.
Exactly. When we tap into that connection, when we see that divine spark in ourselves and everyone else, that's when we start to, truly live as a source of love and forgiveness.
So it's more than just being nice. It's recognizing that shared humanity, that oneness.
Exactly. Seeing ourselves in others and them in us.
Powerful. It makes me think of that quote, "To give and to receive are one in truth." Like when we give love, we receive it too. Forgive others, we forgive ourselves.
It's all connected. And that's what makes this journey, this being a source of love and forgiveness, so transformative. It changes how we see ourselves, how we interact with the world.
This is all so inspiring, but I'm also, I don't know, a little overwhelmed.
Mm.
It's a lot. Where do we start with all this?
That's understandable. It can be a lot to process. But the lesson gives a simple place to begin. It asks, how can I actively remember and fulfill my function as a source of love in my interactions with others today?
That's good. Brings it back to now what we can do today.
Exactly. That's the key to living this lesson. Not trying to change everything at once, but making those small choices throughout the day to be in alignment with love and forgiveness.
It's those little choices that add up over time, right?
Absolutely. We're planting seeds of love and forgiveness everywhere. And those seeds, they'll grow, they'll blossom, they create a more beautiful, more harmonious world.
I love that. So, wrapping up our deep dive into Lesson 64, what's the most important thing for our listeners? What do you hope they take away?
That's a tough one. This lesson is packed with wisdom. But I'd say the most important thing is we all have that power to be a source of love and forgiveness. It's like our birthright. Even when it's hard, even when we mess up, it's a journey worth taking.
That's beautifully said. And for those listeners ready for that journey, we encourage you to look at those exercises. They're practical ways to put these ideas into practice, to really feel that power of love and forgiveness.
And remember, you're not alone in this. The Holy Spirit's there to guide you, to support you, to help you remember that you are love.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Lesson 64 of A Course in Miracles. We hope it was insightful and inspiring for you.
And until next time, may you be a source of love and light.
It's funny, Lesson 64 keeps coming back to this idea of remembering. Like, we already have this love and forgiveness inside, but we've, I don't know, forgotten it's there.
Yeah, almost like the Course is saying we've been hypnotized,
Mm.
by the ego, tricked into thinking fear and lack, that's all there is. But underneath our true nature, it's love.
And the more we remember that, the more it becomes like our actual experience.
Exactly. Peeling back layers, revealing the light that's always been there inside.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think about those times when I do tap into that love, that forgiveness, it feels, wow, amazing. Like a weight's been lifted.
I know what you mean. That feeling of freedom, lightness, being connected to something bigger.
And it spreads, doesn't it? Like when I'm coming from that place, it seems like others, they kind of do the same.
Well, for sure. We're all mirrors, right? Reflecting back. When we choose love, forgiveness, we're giving others permission to do the same.
So even if we don't see like huge changes out in the world, those little acts, they matter.
I really believe they do. The Course talks about how every time we forgive, it's a victory for the light. We're tipping the scales towards love. One kind thought, one gesture, one moment of understanding at a time.
And those moments, they ripple out further than we can imagine.
Exactly. We might never know the full impact, but we can trust that they're helping create a shift towards more love, more peace.
That gives me hope, even when things feel, I don't know, dark, tough.
And that's the message of Lesson 64, I think. Hope's never lost. Love's always there. Forgiveness is always possible.
I love that. Well, I think we've explored just about everything in Lesson 64. What a powerful deep dive this has been.
It has. I'm glad we could share it.
Me too.
No?
So for our listeners who are, feeling inspired, ready to try these things out, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Be patient with yourself. This is a journey. It's not like a finish line you cross. There'll be times you forget, you fall back into old habits. It's okay. Just keep coming back to this lesson. Remind yourself you are a source of love and forgiveness, and trust that you're being guided all along the way.
That's great advice. And remember, you've got all these tools, the reminders, affirmations, visualizations, meditation, acts of kindness, and those reflection exercises.
Use them, play around, see what works for you, and have fun.
Yes, this doesn't have to be all serious. It could be joyful, playful, even an adventure.
Exactly. So go out there, shine your light.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Lesson 64 of A Course in Miracles. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring. And remember to like, share, subscribe for more deep dives into all sorts of cool topics, stuff that helps us understand ourselves, the world better. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep shining your light.